Bill Zedike grew up in New Jersey, graduating from the University of New Hampshire in 1956. He worked for the U.S. Forest Service for 34 years with experience in habitat management and challenges on national forests in the Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest. He established Zedike Ecological Consulting in 2004 to specialize in small stream and wetland restoration across the desert Southwest. With more than 280 completed projects, Bill has developed, tested, and applied a wide variety of treatments and practices on both public and private lands in the U.S. and in Mexico. Bill has presented numerous seminars and on-the-ground workshops for students, while also authoring 3 books and a range of other publications. It's my pleasure to welcome you today, Bill.
Thank you, Laura. And it's a real pleasure to be here and an honor. I've been, as she just mentioned, doing stream and wetland restoration work since 1994. I guess that makes it 30 years now. But and I did a lot of it when I was an employee with the Forest Service. We took on questions of road drainage and all the different kinds of impacts that not only create erosion, but determines where the water goes. So these are some of the things that I want to work into this. I don't have much time, but we need to, one of my sayings is think like water. We don't usually handle things that way. We think about we'd like to see the outcome be, not what work is the water going to do, and how can we get free benefits from how the water does. I was going to give a longer talk on a subject that I call the trilogy, and everything we do regarding erosion control and stream restoration and ecology is made up of 3 ologies. Okay, hydrology. A lot of us just think about the hydrology. Well, you know, when does it rain? How long does it rain? How often does it rain? We don't think about where the water goes. We think about how much is there and how we're going to deal with it. Dave Roskin talked a lot about that years ago. Okay, and then we think about geomorphology. And if we're worried about erosion, how are we going to catch sediment and have it build us back up again? Okay, that's the second part of the trilogy. Hydrology, geomorphology. All geomorphology is really simple. Where's the sediment coming from? Where is it flowing? Where is it going to be deposited? We know that. We got all the answers. Really simple. And that's regulated by the hydrology. How much water do we have? And what we hardly ever think about, except in terms of the results, I've seen lots of photos today, is the ecology. What's the result in terms of both animals and plants? We think about the plants more often than we do the animals. But if we think about the trilogy being all 3 ologies working together, the hydrology, how much moisture and where is it running? What's the geomorphology, the sediments moving? And where are they deposited? And the ecology, what's the ecological response to that change in water and geomorphology? Okay, so what happens with the trilogy then is with the ecology or the vegetation, we've seen nice pictures of vegetation response and all my previous speakers, okay? But that not only changes how the land looks, it changes the hydrology because it changes how fast the water runs. And it changes the geomorphology because it changes where sediments are deposited. and that can change what kinds of plants grow there, and the change in vegetation changes the hydrology and changes the geomorphology and so on. So we can damage it, and the triangle suddenly shrinks, so to speak. The impacts on the land are a lot worse. So I'm going to show my film. Thank you for being willing to watch that. Sums up 30 years of work. I'm very, very, very honored by the videos that Renee Roberts has been creating. She's been tagging along with me for 5 years. She's created 5 videos, each on a different area, a different subject. And the first one is being shown in public in Santa Fe 2 weeks from Saturday. And there will be a series of 5. The 5 videos, the first one is primarily about my work in New Mexico and Arizona and Colorado. The second one is about the work that's been done in Colorado by a group of people we've got working up there, both professionals and volunteers. The third one will be about stream and wetland restoration in the Valles Caldera National Preserve, which was 3/4 the way burned by forest fires in 2011 and 2013. Huge damage. But what we learned is a lot of the sediment coming off the burned area was the resource to restore incised channels in the valley bottom. So by building one rock dams and what I call baffles to cause the river to meander and not downcut, that means we have to erode the bank, terrible thing to do, except it makes the stream longer. If you erode the bank with a pattern, and you get induced meandering, and that puts the energy for erosion into the bank and not into the bed, and the channel gets longer, which means it's less steep, and therefore the water doesn't flow as fast, and therefore it can't move as much sediments, and the sediments are deposited, and that means there's more, the same amount of water in the stream gets deeper because it's not moving as fast, but there's just as much of it, so it has to get deeper. So it floods onto its banks on both sides, and that initiates the growth of native vegetation, which helps to hold the banks in place. And so it's all, every step builds on the next one. We have to learn to think like that. And that's not the history of stream or erosion control work. We try to mold the channel into our concept of what it ought to look like. And I bet you most of the time we ain't got it quite right. But if we encourage the creek to build the right kind of channel for the geology of that site and use the water wisely, then we grow vegetation, and the vegetation stabilizes the banks and produces wildlife, etc. So we have to, I liked all the scenes we showed, and there was good points in all of them, but I'm also trying to say, learn to think like the creek. And the river has much work, much time. That's one of my sayings that I really believe in. The river has much time. We're the ones in a damn hurry. And we're going to finish this by Friday because we got another job to do next week. So when we get done, it's going to be right. It's always going to be correct. It's always going to function right. And the river says, oh, maybe. At Hubble Trading Post, my first induced meandering project, we got about a little bit of progress. Then we had a huge flood. The water was 11 feet deep. about 5,000 cubic feet of water per second, big as the Rio Grande River for a few hours. Did horrendous damage. Afterwards, we put in baffles and made the river meander. We put in one rock dams to keep it from down cutting. We extended the baffles with time so the creek would erode the bank and get more sinuous, and the channel length went from 2,600 feet long to 3,400 feet long in 10 years. Wow, long time. Except it was a third longer than when we started, but it was the same elevation, top and bottom. That means it was flatter. That means less water, the water moved slower. Much smaller sized particles were moved by the flowing water, so we got riffle pool ratios evolving. Okay, so the channel went from having been straightened by machine, and then a dam was built that blew out, and the channel down cut 8 feet, and there was upland vegetation growing on tops of the former floodplain, and the channel was from I think 12 to 20 feet wide with no access to the floodplain. By generating the meander pattern, the channel began to fill, and it came up an average of about 6 feet per year, or 6 inches per year. Not much. Why are we doing this? Except in 10 years, that was 5 feet. And in 16 years, it was 8 feet. And the channel was not incised any longer. And we had a rich sediment supply coming from damaged landforms upstream, which was horrible, except that was the resource source for the material to stabilize the channel here. So we've always heard, start at the top and work your way down. Well, sometimes because of property ownership boundaries and such, we can't do it that way anyhow. But if we can have the stream begin to stabilize itself, then we use the power of running water to good advantage. And the vegetation holds the sediments in place. And we don't have to form the channel. The river does the work. It forms the channel if we can just start it. So usually what we do, we have an image of what it's going to look like. We're going to make it like that. And like I say, leave on Friday because we got another job. The river has got a long time. What we did at Hubble Trading Post has been 20 years in the making. And the channel is now the floodplain is 120 feet wide, and it's all occupied by wetland plants again, and we didn't plant them. They moved in on their own. We saw that in some of the other pictures. So I'm begging you to think about what the river can do and give it time to do it. Help it get started and then get out of the way, stand back. And if you can tweak it a little bit, that's fine. But be patient. And we just need to reverse the process so it stops getting worse and it starts getting better, and then give it time to do it. And I think that's my closing remark. I'll be glad to answer questions later.
Well, we do have at the end of our session now, but I'm encouraging everybody to stick around and pick Bill's brain with me if you want. Otherwise, we'll call it the end of our session officially. But thank you all very much for coming. you.